Okay, everybody, good morning. What is going on? I hope you guys are doing well. And we're going to talk a little bit about this bit of news from yesterday because, well, first of all, I do think that it's actually worth discussing for at least a couple of minutes here. But I definitely got a lot of comments last night from people asking if this was something that was worth a conversation as it pertains to the Seattle Seahawks. So we're going to talk a little bit about Vita Vea. I'm sure that most of you have heard, if you follow NFL news at all in the offseason, and I know some people don't, Vita Vea requested a trade from Tampa Bay yesterday afternoon. He and Tampa have been working on an extension for a little while now, but apparently it's just not happening, and he wants out. So there are a couple different angles here. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. Before I get to the Vita Vea thing real quick, though, I want to say something. I'm going to be pretty busy this morning. So if the Devin Witherspoon extension is announced sometime this morning, I'm probably not going to be able to make the video about it until the afternoon. So this video, and I think I'm going to have another video coming out a little bit later in the morning, maybe even early afternoon. If the Witherspoon extension happens and you're like, why is Brendan talking about something that isn't the Witherspoon extension? I've got these pre-loaded, but I will talk about it if it happens. So just wanted to put that out there. No, I'm not avoiding the topic. Believe me, I would love nothing more than to be able to make a video about the Witherspoon extension that seems imminent and yet is not yet here. Okay, so let's talk about Vita Vea for a little bit here. Vita Vea requesting a trade from the Buccaneers. First part of this, and this is the part that people asked about yesterday. Should the Seahawks sniff around a trade for Vita Vea from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? So let's break this down a little bit here. So Vita Vea, really, really good. Players like Vita Vea do not come around very often. So that much, let's understand that. This is a very good and very valuable player. He would definitely help this team. And I could see Mike McDonald looking at a guy like Vita Vea and think to himself, "Man, if I had that, I'd be so loaded on my interior defensive line that almost nothing else would really matter. Like we would be so dominant in the middle, nobody could run on us, and the interior pass rush would become so deadly, everything else barely even matters." So let's just start there. Vita Vea, great player, still playing at a high level, still doing some really good stuff. There is definitely a reason why Seahawks fans rang in and were like, "Hey, is this a player we should be interested in?" And I'll be clear about this. I think that when a player becomes available in a trade, even if it's not really a player you want as an NFL GM, it's your job to call and ask what they might be looking for and feel things out and see if maybe the player is available for less than you thought. Or if for nothing else, you should call in just so you can kind of get a feel for what might be happening with some of these other teams. Like you should be in on everything that happens, even if you're not all the way in on it. So don't get me wrong. I think that Vita Vea is somebody that is worth taking a look at here if you are John Schneider, just because when a big time player becomes available, you should at least pick up the phone. And Vita Vea is definitely a big time player. Not only is he a former Washington Husky, so we'd be bringing a local legend back home, one of the legends under Chris Peterson. He's been a very good NFL player, two-time Pro Bowler, one of the best pure noses in football, and he gets to the quarterback at a pretty high rate as well. So, yeah, he is as good as it gets for the position. All right, guys, let's take a quick break here to talk a little bit about Prize Picks, currently the #1 sports pick app in America. The app is very easy to use. Check it out to my left here. You can do player picks, where you just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Or you can pick teams, where you pick winners, spread, or total on any game or fight. The app is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Right now, they have a great offer. You can play your first $5 lineup and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you have to do is use code HMA when you sign up. It's a brand new offer. Best time possible to get on the app. So get on over there and get to winning that first lineup. So remember, Prize Picks, code HMA. Download the app today, and remember to always gamble responsibly. And let me just expand on why this guy is so good real quick here. Not only is he one of the most difficult to handle run stoppers in football with his size and his power and his strength, this is a guy who regularly gets into the backfield and gets pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Over his career, he has regularly averaged around one pressure a game, even though he's a 350-pound nose tackle. Pro Football Focus has always been at least relatively high on him. There have definitely been some seasons better than others, but every year of his career, he's been at least a decent player, and last few years, he's been marked as a particularly good one. So there's no reason why any NFL team shouldn't want to add Vita Vea to their roster if they have the opportunity. So sure, let's go beyond just the basic level of it though, and keep going. The contract. Let's talk about the contract here. So obviously Vita Vea wants a new contract. Vita Vea is going to turn 32 years old right before the Super Bowl, so he's 31 right now. So age is starting to become a factor. He's around the same age as a guy like a Leonard Williams. So age is going to start to become a problem. Now, usually defensive tackles can play well into their mid-30s, but Vita Vea is bigger. So I do wonder if maybe things are going to be a little different for him. Guys like Leonard Williams and Chris Jones have an easier time excelling into their older age because they're freak athletes. I'm not saying Vita Vea isn't, but I look at him and I do wonder if it's going to be the same thing for him. Okay, so the age thing, I would definitely want to know how much he wants to get extended. Could you rent him? Could you trade for him and say you're going to play out the year for us and then you're going to be a free agent at the end of the year? Maybe we extend you, maybe we don't, but you're going to have to play the season out first because he's got 1 year left on his deal, 17 million base. There's some restructure money, a roster bonus, and some void money that Tampa Bay would have to eat. It's not a lot, though. Tampa Bay would not eat a ton of money here. And as far as we're concerned, we only have to worry about the 17 million, which is a lot, but it's not impossible. And it's also not impossible for Tampa to be willing to eat this money on a trade, especially if he doesn't want to be there anymore. So monetarily, you could make it work, but that's $17 million that you didn't think you were going to be spending this year that you're now going to be spending. So how are you going to account for that? Are you maybe thinking about something that you were going to do next offseason, like extend AJ Barner, that you're now not going to do? Are you going to say, we're going to let AJ Barner go in the future because we need the money now to give to Vita Vea? Is that maybe the trade-off you make? And if that is the trade-off, is that a good trade-off to make, knowing that it's Vita Vea for 1 year versus potentially AJ Barner for 3 to 4 years? So that you might have to make a little bit of a decision here. Now, the trade itself could take care of this because here's the thing. If you want to trade for Vita Vea, let's continue down this line a little bit here. I think you're going to have to trade a defensive lineman back to Tampa to kind of offset some of the trade value and also to clear up playing time. So it's not going to be Big Cat. It's not going to be Byron Murphy. It's going to be Jarran Reed. You're probably looking at, like, because it's a 1 year rental on an older player who wants out, a 3rd round pick plus Jarran Reed. Now, I'd probably be willing to do that, but it is a good draft next year. So that 3rd round pick, pretty appealing. That 3rd round pick is a little bit better than a typical 3rd rounder. And Jarran Reed, while he isn't the greatest player in the world now, can still provide value, is still a useful player, and he's also one of the veteran leaders on this team. Do you trade him out? Do you lose something that you're not really thinking about that much right now because you don't see it on the football field, but is still valuable to this team? Is there some kind of a trade-off there where you're getting a much better player? Like, don't get me wrong, Vita Vea is a much better player than Jarran Reed. He's, I believe, also a little bit younger than Jarran Reed, so it's not even like you're trading a young piece with potential. But do you lose something that isn't immediately readily apparent that is nevertheless costly. That's very possible. And what if the Buccaneers don't want Jarran Reed? They might look at him and go, what are we going to do with that? What if they want Riley Mills instead? Somebody who actually is young, somebody who actually is potentially going to become a really good player for the next decade in this league. I might still do it. I'd probably still be willing to do it, but now it's a lot harder, isn't it? You're trading 4 years minimum of Riley Mills, and there's been a lot of hype around him so far this offseason for probably 1 year of Vita Vea. Or maybe you're extending Vita Vea and just crossing your fingers that age doesn't take him down several notches. Maybe you're just hoping that it takes him down a notch. So the trade itself is a little bit complicated, but if I had to feel it out, I imagine this Seattle team, knowing them, would probably draw the line at something like third round pick plus Jarran Reed or Riley Mills. And my main thought is that somebody else is going to do better than that. Somebody that has a need at defensive tackle that looks at Vita Vea and goes, we need that guy, not just we want that guy, will probably do better. A team like the Bears would probably do better than that. A team like, and we'll get to this in a second here, the 49ers would probably do better than that. But the other element at play here, and I don't want to get away from this, is at a certain point, there is a law of diminishing returns. And when you're Seattle and you've got the best interior defensive line in football outside of maybe Philly, with Big Cat, with Murphy, with Reed, and you can throw Riley Mills in there as well, do you really need to get something even better? Even if you're swapping out a piece and bringing in a better piece, at a certain point, do you have diminishing returns where it's like not even really making you that much better? Because all these guys can't be on the field at once most of the time. I'm not sure. That would be something that Mike McDonald would have to answer. Does he think he can do it? Or does he just feel like I said, that the difference between having Jarran Reed coming off your bench and Vita Vea is not big enough to change the fortunes of this team? So ultimately, you put all that together, I don't think the Vita Vea thing is on the table. I don't really see that being a likely consideration. I would be open to it, but I feel like somebody's going to step up and offer more. And there's also this, and this is the other piece here. So Ted Wynn of Football Film Analysis had this tweet, and I've seen a similar sentiment from some other sources as well. Apparently, Vita Vea wants to either go to California, one of those teams, or the Raiders. Don't know why he wouldn't want to go back to the state where he played college football, but so it is. So what do we got? We've got the Chargers, the Rams, the 49ers, and the Raiders. Those are the teams he wants to play for. Now, this is kind of a wrinkle here, right? If he goes to the Raiders or Chargers, we don't really care about that, although we do play the Raiders and Chargers this year. If he goes to the 49ers or the Rams, then we kind of care, right? So I guess you could call that another element here. What if us deciding to swing for the fences on a Vita Vea trade is what it takes to keep him away from San Francisco or LA, two division rivals that we don't need to be adding a, I don't want to call him a blue chip player at this point, but a very good player on their defensive line, especially the Niners who are kind of destitute in the middle there in many ways. And Vita Vea would just completely change the complexion of that team, I think. If you have the opportunity to prevent the Niners from getting somebody like that and it costs you like a second round pick, does that now become worth it? Because I don't think it's worth it just in a vacuum. But it's kind of like the Aaron Donald thing, right? Yeah, maybe you're not too excited about making the Aaron Donald trade when you look at what you have to give up. However, when you consider the fact that you would give that stuff up to get him and keep him away from a team like the Rams, I think that at least makes you reconsider. You might come to the same conclusion, but you have to at least think about it. So, with that on the table here, does that change your perspective? And does it change your perspective back, knowing that he apparently doesn't really want to be on any team other than these four? And does it also make you wonder about his intentions, given the fact that it doesn't seem like his interest is necessarily being on a winning team, given the fact that he's open to going to the Raiders, who just got the number one pick? And remember, he's got 1 year left on his deal. If they don't extend him, it's a 1-year rental on a team that figures to be pretty bad again this year. So winning might be a little bit low on his priority list. So a little bit of a complicated one here. Don't know if this trade's actually going to happen. Don't know if Tampa Bay is actually motivated enough to do this. Maybe this convinces Tampa Bay to go ahead with a contract extension, and pretty soon this is all going to be completely resolved. But I don't know. What do you guys think? He would be great, right? He would be a true nose tackle in a defense that doesn't really have a true nose tackle, right? We've got a bunch of 3 techs, and we've got 3 techs that can play some nose, but we don't have a true nose right now. Vita Vea would clear everything up. Then you just got Big Cat and Murphy and Mills rotating through 3 tech. Reed would, like I said, probably be part of the trade here to make it work. And the money would not be a huge consideration because you're moving off Reed. Like a lot of the money you would spend on Vea would cancel out because of the Reed money. So you can definitely make it add up. I just wonder about whether or not it moves the needle enough to justify giving up what you have to give up. If it's a 3rd-round pick, then sure. Oh, sorry, I don't know what's going on down there. Sorry if you guys can hear that squeaking. But if it's a 3rd-round pick, yeah, I would do that. I think Vita Vea is good enough for that. If it's a 2nd-round pick, it's just one of those things where I got to know, first of all, is he going to be invested? Does he even want to be here? Because apparently he wants to be in the California area, even if it means being on a bad team like the Raiders. And am I blocking him from the 49ers or Rams if I'm getting him? So a couple different things to think about here. But overall, I don't expect Seattle to be too into this one. Not because I think this team doesn't like Vita Vea, but I feel like this is a circumstance where you're not going to be able to keep up with the bidding. You're not going to be able to outbid the teams that really need him. And let's say Vita Vea eventually opens up his requests and says, I'm willing to go to any team that's willing to pay me. Like, again, I don't think you can keep up with a team like the Bears, who could really use a guy like this and probably feel like they need a guy like this if they want to win the Super Bowl this year. And whereas in Seattle, you're probably thinking like, that would be nice, but we definitely don't need it. All right. Let me know what you guys think. Fun thoughts, fun conversation, but I don't, at this point, I just don't think the team would be willing to move heaven and earth to get a guy like Vita Vea, as cool as it would be. All right, go Hawks. See you guys soon. Hopefully we get the spoon update, although hopefully it's not when I'm unable to make a video for a few hours. And yeah, more practice later today. Go Hawks.